Wednesday, the 21st of May. Welcome to the President's Daily Brief. I'm Mike Baker, your eyes and ears on the world stage. All right, let's get briefed. We begin today with a disturbing report. The Chinese regime may be bankrolling a U.S. group that teaches illegal immigrants how to evade ICE. A new investigation has traced money from the Chinese Communist Party-linked entities straight into the hands of this controversial nonprofit. Now, I'd like to say that I'm surprised that the Chinese Communist Party might engage in these types of shenanigans. But, well, I'm the opposite of surprised. Later in the show, new details about an Israeli covert operation in Gaza. Special forces, disguised as women, infiltrated deep into enemy territory to eliminate a senior terror commander. Plus, Europe cracks down on Russia's secretive shadow fleet. Nearly 200 oil tankers now face sanctions as the EU and UK move to choke off oil revenues that help fund Putin's war machine. And in today's Back of the Brief, a stunning fall from grace. The Navy's former second-in-command has been convicted in a historic corruption case, becoming the highest-ranking officer ever found guilty of a federal crime while in uniform. But first, today's PDB Spotlight. We'll begin today with a look at the subversive activities of China's communist regime and their latest attempts to destabilize American society from within by undermining U.S. immigration laws. Now, a disturbing investigation by some intrepid reporters at the Daily Caller News Foundation has uncovered evidence that the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, is actively using a shadowy financial web of Chinese government-linked entities to fund an American nonprofit group accused of trying to facilitate illegal immigration. The organization in question, called the Chinese American Planning Council, or CPC, has previously been caught coaching illegal immigrants on how to evade apprehension by immigration and customs enforcement agents, or ICE agents, all while raking in millions of dollars in grants from the federal government. Of course, the federal government is giving them money. According to financial records reviewed exclusively by the Daily Caller, the CPC, a nonprofit based in New York, has received up to $445,000 in funding from sources with links to the Chinese government since 2018. Some of the organizations bankrolling the nonprofit include the state-owned Bank of China, the state-run Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, and the Bank of East Asia, whose executives have served as delegates to the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, where they receive directives straight from the CCP, the, again, Chinese Communist Party. Another notable group linked to the nonprofit group is a fellow New York-based nonprofit called the Charles B. Wang Community Health Center, whose billionaire patron, the aforementioned Wang, regularly meets with CCP leaders in China. The CPC, which is the nonprofit, their extensive ties have caught the attention of members of Congress and raised the prospect that the Chinese government is actively trying to undermine the enforcement of U.S. immigration laws. Homeland Security Committee Chairman Mark Green, a Republican from Tennessee, told the Daily Caller News Foundation, quote, "I'm deeply concerned that Americans' hard-earned taxpayer dollars were potentially used by an NGO, a nonprofit, to help illegal aliens subvert our nation's laws. Even more troubling is the Chinese American Planning Council's alleged ties to the Chinese Communist Party." He added that his committee would continue investigating the nonprofit, along with any other NGOs that are using taxpayer dollars to, quote, "make a mockery of our laws." The House Homeland Security Committee first announced their investigation of the nonprofit group CPC in mid-April over allegations that they've been using federal funds to facilitate illegal immigration. The committee took action after footage surfaced allegedly showing the CPC's Chief Policy and Public Affairs Officer teaching illegal immigrants on the most effective ways to dodge arrest by ICE agents. In the footage, which was first obtained by muckraker.com, the CPC official instructed audience members to avoid ICE by, quote, "hardening your physical space," identifying a list of individuals authorized to respond if ICE comes to the door, and training everybody who's going to be involved. Another speaker advised attendees to, quote, "not open the door at all if ICE agents come knocking." We should note that while state and local officials are not obligated to assist federal immigration authorities in their efforts, it is a crime to stop or otherwise impede enforcement of federal immigration laws. The Trump administration has made cracking down on illegal immigration a policy priority, and the Justice Department has made it clear that they will prosecute those engaged in attempts to obstruct justice. The Daily Caller report points to the recent arrest and indictment of a Wisconsin judge by the DOJ, who's accused of helping an illegal migrant evade detention by ICE. Again, when it comes to the Chinese-linked CPC, the nonprofit, the main concern for House Republicans is whether the group has been actively trying to subvert U.S. immigration laws, given the extensive funding they receive through federal and state government grants. The Daily Caller investigation found that roughly 55% of the CPC's total revenue comes from these grants. While it's unclear how much money they've received from grants through the state of New York, we do know that they've received more than $1.4 million in direct federal grants from the Department of Health and Human Services since 2022. Given the nonprofit's close links to a slew of organizations with ties to China's communist regime, many are concerned that the Chinese Communist Party is directly trying to derail the Trump administration's immigration agenda. So far, the CPC, the nonprofit, has not issued a statement or responded to the Daily Caller's request for comment. The investigation by the House Homeland Security Committee continues. All right, coming up next, Israel's special forces go undercover in women's clothing to take out a top terror leader. And Europe targets Russia's secret oil fleet with sweeping new sanctions. I'll be right back. Hey, Mike Baker here. Let me take just a few seconds of your time to talk about financial health, right? Oh, I know, that's everybody's favorite subject. But it's very important. Look, when your credit isn't perfect, it can really feel like the system is stacked against you. But there's a company out there looking to help, and that company would be Kickoff. That's Kickoff without the C, Kikoff. Kickoff gives you the smartest tools to build real credit fast. Look, with transparent, affordable plans starting at just, get this, $5 per month, no hidden fees and zero interest, Kickoff helps you score big when it comes to credit. And it's simple. You make on-time payments, credit bureaus see good behavior, and your credit can grow fast. Users with credit under 600 grew an average of 84 points in their first year. So with over 1 million users and thousands of positive reviews, there's a reason why Kickoff is the #1 credit builder app. Start building credit with Kickoff today, and you can get your first month for as little as $1. That's 80% off the normal price when you go to getkickoff.com/Mike today. That's Kickoff without the C. Getkickoff.com/Mike. Must sign up via getkickoff.com/Mike to activate offer. Offer applies to new Kickoff customers first month only, subject to approval and offer subject to change. Average first-year credit score impact of plus 84 points, Vantage Score 3.0 between January 2023 and January 2024 for Kickoff credit account users who started with a score below 600, who paid on time, and who had no delinquencies or collections added to their credit profile during the period. Late payments may negatively impact your credit score. Individual results may vary. Welcome back to the PDB. In what sounds more like a scene out of a movie than a true military operation, IDF Special Forces, disguised as women, stormed into Khan Yunis early Monday and killed Ahmad Sarhan, a senior commander in Gaza's third-largest terror faction. According to eyewitnesses and reports from the Hamas-linked Safa news agency, 9 commandos stepped off a white civilian bus, posing as displaced Palestinian women, and stormed Sarhan's home. The senior commander was shot on sight. His wife and children were reportedly detained. Sarhan, a senior operative in the al-Nasser Salah al-Din brigades, the militant wing of the Popular Resistance Committees, was declared dead roughly 4 hours later by the terror group, which referred to him as their, quote, special operations officer. For those unfamiliar, the Popular Resistance Committees are a jihadist Salafist militia aligned with Hamas and responsible for a string of deadly attacks, including participation in the 7 October 2023 terror attacks on Israel. The terror group has a long history of carrying out rocket barrages, roadside bombings, and ambushes on IDF patrols, and Sarhan was a key architect in those efforts. Witnesses described the early morning raid as short but intense, lasting no more than 20 minutes and heavily supported by the Israeli Air Force. The home, reportedly damaged in a prior airstrike, came under renewed fire as Israeli tanks and helicopters provided covering fire for the commandos' extraction. Palestinian media outlets reported that more than 30 Israeli support airstrikes were carried out across the span of 40 minutes, blanketing southern Khan Yunis. Dozens were said to be killed or wounded, though those numbers have not been independently confirmed. Terrorist-affiliated media also claimed that the Israeli unit used a civilian vehicle with local license plates and concealed weapons under blankets and clothing to avoid detection. Safa news agency alleged that Israeli forces had hoped to interrogate Sarhan before killing him, though this has not been verified. The IDF has denied speculation that the raid was linked to a hostage rescue operation. Also reported killed in the strikes, Mahdi Kawara, a Hamas commander in southern Khan Yunis, though it's unclear whether he died in the raid or in concurrent airstrikes. The targeted operation unfolded in tandem with Israel's renewed military campaign dubbed Operation Gideon's Chariots, which began over the weekend following a breakdown in ceasefire talks. Meanwhile, international backlash is mounting as leaders of the United Kingdom, France, and Canada later on Monday threatened to take, quote, concrete actions, including sanctions, if Israel continues blocking humanitarian aid to the enclave amid several days of heavy airstrikes. As PDB listeners know, the blockade resumed back in March when the brokered January ceasefire collapsed. Under growing pressure from Western allies, Prime Minister Netanyahu announced that Israel would now allow what he called a, quote, basic amount of food into the enclave. 5 aid trucks were reportedly allowed through this week, though the UN's humanitarian chief dismissed the deliveries as, quote, a drop in the ocean of what is urgently needed, end quote. Even so, indirect talks between Hamas and Israel do continue in Doha, with mediators clinging to faint hopes, underline the word faint, of brokering a new agreement as Israel's offensive intensifies by the day. Okay, shifting to Europe. The EU unveiled its 17th sanctions package against Russia, again taking direct aim at tankers in Moscow's so-called shadow fleet. That's the clandestine armada used to bypass Western restrictions and sustain the Kremlin's wartime oil revenues. In all, 189 vessels tied to illicit oil and grain shipments were blacklisted, alongside asset freezes and travel bans targeting Russian officials and companies. The measures, greenlit by EU foreign ministers meeting in Brussels, mark one of the bloc's most aggressive moves yet in the economic pressure campaign against Putin's war machine. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas didn't hold back. She stated, while, quote, Russian leader Vladimir Putin feigns interest in peace, more sanctions are in the works. Kallas warned that Moscow's actions and those aiding them would face escalating consequences. Now, this isn't the first time that Europe has tried to hobble Russia's offshore lifeline. These ships, many of which are aging or poorly maintained and sailing under foreign flags to circumvent regulations, have quietly carried crude oil and diesel and Ukrainian grain, often under murky ownership structures and shielded by complicit insurance schemes. According to Ukrainian estimates, the shadow fleet consists of around 500 ships. Third-party assessments by firms such as S&P Global and the think tank Kyiv School of Economics place the number closer to 400. So far, the EU has sanctioned nearly 350 of these ships, yet concerns extend beyond revenue loss and sanctions leakage. Back in December, Finland's investigation into the Eagle S tanker, suspected of damaging the Estlink 2 undersea power cable with its anchor, sparked fears that parts of the fleet could be doubling as platforms for maritime sabotage. The latest package of EU sanctions also blacklists 17 individuals and 58 entities, including an insurer linked to the shadow fleet's operations. Officials say the measures target financial and logistical nodes across the UAE, Turkey, and Hong Kong, all of which have played key roles in facilitating Russia's global oil trade despite the sanctions. In a coordinated move, the UK rolled out its own slate of 100 new sanctions on Tuesday, aimed at, quote, ramping up pressure on the Kremlin. Among them were 18 additional Shadow Fleet vessels and several firms supplying Iskander short-range ballistic missiles. Those are weapons that have been repeatedly used to strike civilian areas in Ukraine. London's sanctions also targeted sectors central to the Kremlin's military-industrial complex, including energy exporters, propaganda outlets, and financial facilitators. British Foreign Secretary David Lammy issued a blistering statement declaring, quote, Putin's latest missile and drone strikes once again show his true colors as a warmonger. He urged Moscow to accept a full unconditional ceasefire and move toward real negotiations. Well, that should do it. I'm sure he'll get a call from Putin soon. According to Fox News, these sweeping sanctions come on the heels of President Trump's phone call with Putin, which failed to advance ceasefire negotiations. EU officials say work on the sanctions package began immediately after the last round was finalized 3 months ago in an effort to strong-arm the Kremlin to the negotiating table. Since the outset of Russia's full-scale invasion in February of 2022, the European Union has sanctioned roughly 2,400 Russian officials and entities. And with Moscow continuing to stonewall ceasefire overtures, EU diplomats say that this latest move won't be the last. All right, coming up next in the back of the brief, a top Navy admiral convicted in a historic corruption case, marking the highest-ranking officer ever found guilty of a federal crime while in uniform. I'll have those details next. Hey, Mike Baker here. Now, coming up this July, you may have heard about this, there's a global summit of BRICS nations being held in Rio de Janeiro. Now, the bloc of emerging superpowers, it includes China and Russia and India and Iran. They're meeting with the goal of displacing the U.S. dollar as the global currency. And they're calling this effort the Rio Reset. How's that for a catchy name? Now, as BRICS nations push forward with their plans, demand for U.S. dollars could decrease, bringing down, of course, the value of the dollar. And while the transition won't happen overnight, the Rio Reset marks a pivotal moment when BRICS objectives move from possibility toward reality. So, you ask yourself, what can you do to help protect your hard-earned dollar savings? Well, I could suggest, and I will, that the first stop is with the professionals over at Birch Gold Group. Birch Gold Group can help you move your hard-earned dollar savings into a tax-sheltered IRA in precious metals. Claim your free information kit on gold by texting PDB to 989-898. With an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, let Birch Gold arm you with a free information kit on owning gold before July and that Rio Reset. Just text PDB to 989-898 today. In today's back of the brief, a historic conviction is sending shockwaves through the U.S. military this week. Retired four-star Admiral Robert P. Burke, once the Navy's second highest-ranking officer, has been found guilty of bribery, conspiracy, and concealing material facts in a federal corruption case. His conviction marks the first time an officer of his rank has ever been convicted of a federal crime committed while on active duty. According to federal prosecutors, Burke participated in a scheme to steer Navy contracts worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, possibly more, to a private training company in exchange for a future job. The job came with a hefty salary, a $500,000 annual salary, and stock options to begin after his retirement. The timeline of events is, well, damning. In 2021, despite previous warnings from the Navy to avoid contact with the company, later identified by CBS News as a company called Next Jump, Burke met with its co-CEOs, Young-chul Charlie Kim and Megan Messenger, at a Washington, D.C. lunch. During that meeting, they allegedly discussed Burke using his influence to secure the company a federal contract. In return, they offered him the lucrative post-service position. Soon after, Burke allegedly ordered his staff to award the company a $355,000 contract to train naval personnel stationed in Italy and Spain. He also tried, but failed, to persuade a senior Navy commander to grant the company another contract. In August of 2021, Burke notified the Navy of his intent to retire the following May. The company had previously been cut off from Navy business after a short-lived training stint back in 2018 and 2019. Internal communications revealed during the trial show that company executives knew what they were doing. In one message, Kim allegedly wrote, quote, "Burke wants to work for us, but we're asking for a deal first." End quote. Well, that's quite the clue. While Messenger remarked that the arrangement, quote, "felt slimy." Now, here's a pro tip. If you're typing a message that says what you're doing feels slimy, then maybe don't do it. U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro put it bluntly. In a post to X, she wrote, quote, "When you abuse your position and betray the public trust to line your own pockets, it undermines the confidence in the government you represent." She promised that her office will continue to pursue corruption no matter what title or rank the individual holds. Burke now faces up to 30 years in prison. Sentencing is scheduled for August, the same month that his co-conspirators are set to go on trial. Now, this conviction comes amid broader efforts to clean up Navy leadership following other scandals, including the infamous Fat Leonard case that ensnared multiple officers in a web of bribery and gifts and corruption. I mean, who could ever forget Fat Leonard? And that, my friends, is the President's Daily Brief for Wednesday, the 21st of May. If you have any questions or comments for me, well, please reach out at pdb@thefirsttv.com. And to listen to the show ad-free, which you can do, and it's very easy, just become a premium member of the President's Daily Brief by visiting pdbpremium.com. I'm Mike Baker, and I'll be back later today with the PDB Afternoon Bulletin. Until then, stay informed, stay safe, stay cool. Hey, Mike Baker here. Now, for those of you in the U.S., well, look at the calendar. Memorial Day is right around the corner. Now, as you know, Memorial Day isn't just a long holiday weekend. Of course, first and foremost, it's an opportunity, an important opportunity, to thank those who have sacrificed and served. But then, yes, again, it is a holiday weekend. You're right about that. And it's also the kickoff to grilling season. So let me tell you, if your grill could talk, it would definitely be asking for something better than grocery store beef. And that's why I order my beef from Tri-Tails Beef. Look, Tri-Tails is a fifth-generation Texas ranch run by family, not run by some faceless meat corporation. Tri-Tails ships pasture-raised, grain-finished black Angus beef straight from their family ranch to your front door. There's no gimmicks, no middlemen, no mystery, just real premium beef delivering great taste in every cut. And right now, for Memorial Day, you can get $20 off their ribeye and New York strip specials. So if you go to trybeef.com/PDB, they'll also throw in 2 free flat iron steaks with your order. So stock up now. That's trybeef.com/PDB. Your grill and your taste buds will thank you. Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.